So, as Guy said, the record I'm going to talk about, it's actually my album. A copy of it pictured behind me on the beach. I should have brought the record because this is washed out. But the record was signed by me in 1992, and it was bought and played by me with fearsome regularity from about late 1974, just before I turned 13. And it was £2.65 at the old sticker still on it, which might be significant later on. And I bought it in Aquarius record shop on Battersea Front, quite near to the beach. And I played the album constantly, right through until the cruel spring of 1975, when my elder brother, aged 19, came to the end of his sad life. During that period, the Loyalist Workers' Strike was poised to topple the one chance for power sharing peace the little north of Ireland had at that time. And my own father, RIP, was one member of a trade union delegation who met with the then Northern Ireland Secretary of State, Merlin Rees, and this delegation was attempting, but failing, to get him to give armed protection to workers who were being intimidated by loyalist paramilitaries during the Loyalist Workers' Strike, which did succeed in bringing down the power-sharing executive. So this record on the beach came into my life at a very heavy period in history and in my personal circumstances. So in 2008, Hammersmith Odeon in London, I saw Neil play the key song from this record, the final track. I always think this track being as akin to what a day in the life is on Sgt. Pepper. It's not just a final track, it's a momentous piece of art that kind of ties everything in its weight together. And when he played it in 2008, it was like a lightning bolt moment for me, and the events that it immediately precipitated made the significance that this record had for me even more abundantly clear. This album and this particular song that I returned to so many times had become part of me. It reshaped my molecular structure, and it had done this through the constant repetition of a needle going down onto the vinyl plastic, and the diamond in the plastic grooves vibrated onto an electric magnetic cartridge, and it went down through the wires, the speakers, and it resulted in this all-encompassing sound wave that broke from on the beach to my brain, body and soul. And that night in 2008, it was the first time I'd seen Neil play a song from the first album by him that I ever bought. But I'd seen Neil many times by that point. And as the signature on the album indicates, I got to meet Neil. I spent about an hour with him 16 years previously, and I remember very little about meeting him, except that at the end of the interview when he signed the record, he took time to explain to me that in the inner sleeve of the record, actually inside, the print is the same as the print on the parasol on the cover. But I knew that already, and I didn't bother saying anything. I just let him talk. I mean, I could begin to tell Neil Young what this record meant to me. I mean, I'd seen Neil many times. I'd seen him be absolutely right knock you between the eyes, brilliant, in his full ragged glory pomp, playing with Crazy Horse, that bar band that Guy referred to, on the west coast, San Francisco, with Sonic Youth. It's in the Cow Palace in San Francisco, sort of a fabled venue, and the reason I was there was that Sonic Youth had paid for me and his photographer to go on the road with them, and they were supporting Neil Young. And this was during the first Gulf War in 1992. And Neil was playing Blowing in the Wind, and he had that big old-fashioned radio mic with a yellow ribbon tied to the old Civil War symbol that they used to tie to oak trees for returning soldiers, and it was the source, that symbol was the source of the #1 hit the year before. On the Beach came out Tie Yellow Ribbon by Tony Orlando and Dawn. And those shows are fantastic, like raging momentum and this empowering purgative force that you get from Crazy Horse at full tilt. And not even Sonic Youth could ruin the effect of it. And Sonic Youth and their management were a bit annoyed to find that it was Neil and not them that appeared in the NME cover the following week. They'd sat down and done an interview with me, and I asked Elliot Roberts, was it possible to have a few words with Neil? And he said exactly the same thing that Bob Dylan's road manager, Victor Mahmoodi's, R.I.P., told me when I asked him for a few words a few years later in Prague when Dylan was playing. He was in a bar, and I went up to him and I asked, he said, have a few words, and he said three words back to me: no fucking way. And that's what Elliot Roberts said as well. But who needs to talk to these people anyway? A report on the trip and an analysis of Neil's show and his art and his place in rock shabby history. That was enough for a cover story, financed by Sonic Youth. They got mentioned in the piece, and next week their interview got printed inside the magazine, but not on the cover. Because if you've ever been a member of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, you'll know that everybody has to bow to Neil. Thank you. Mic drop. Hang on, it's approaching me. But I should also say that before Neil played Ambulance Blues at the Hammersmith Odeon in 2008, I'd seen him play one show that I could only describe as execrable. And this was a small theatre. It was part of a baseball complex just outside of Chicago. And I was as good as in the front row, it was as good a seat as I've ever had at a gig in a small venue. And I was there on my own dollar, following Bob Dylan on a series of shows around Chicago and St. Louis. And Neil was doing a set which was the full bells and whistles, grandma on the porch, young generation singing and dancing troupe version of Greendale. And that show was probably financed by a one-man workshop piece he'd previously performed at the Hammersmith Odeon, a sort of work in progress sketching out Greendale. And for the privilege of watching this Greendale, proto-Greendale performance, you had to pay a record-breaking 50 quid ticket price. That broke the barrier in London gigs. It's probably cheap for a gig now, but at that point it was a new frontier. A few months afterwards, Brian Wilson came to play Pet Sounds for the first time in London with an entire orchestra, and that was a 50 quid ticket. But Neil was on his tour with a harmonica, piano, a few guitars, Yeah, he was on his Todd, and I don't mean Todd Rundgren either. So I enjoyed the gig, but then I didn't, pay for it. Many people that paid did complain, and it was like getting private access to a Neil Young rehearsal. Suited me fine. I mean, where else are you going to see that? But the full production, what ended up being produced from his rough sketch, Christ no, it was fucking dreadful. It was like crass beyond comparison. So much money had been put into it. There's like a whole retinue, a cast performance. A sort of cringingly communal, in-your-face, garish, hokey performance, and it was a million miles away from the solo Holy Communion that I experienced in those months in the 70s in Ulster when I first entered the Church of Neil via On the Beach. And I should say that On the Beach, it's my record, and this is my record before I even knew about the circumstances of its creation, or how Rusty Kershaw's marijuana slides were, a significant factor in the mood, the sound, and the creation of the album. So this Neil Young album was something that he made for me specifically. A very lost teenager with an elder brother severely handicapped from birth who was dying over these months in a notorious care home outside of Belfast, and it understood my situation completely, and it spoke to me directly. And I didn't realise any of this until this gig in 2008, because a good song story, it never ends, and that's when Neil played the song for me for the first time.